It was supposed to be a perfect day. Ryan had carefully chosen the dress she would wear, the one that Jungkook always said made her look radiant. She had been planning for this month, hoping this year they would celebrate in a way they had always dreamed of together. The day had started well, with breakfast in bed, a small surprise gift from Jungkook, and endless texts and calls from her friends, all congratulating her for turning another year older. But something felt off. Jungkook had been distant the past few weeks, as though his mind was elsewhere. His phone was always face down, his gaze more absent than affectionate, and their late night talks had been reduced to uncomfortable silence. Still, she convinced herself it was just work, that he was overwhelmed with deadlines or the pressure of his own ambition. She didn't want to overthink it. She could not on her birthday. Ryan arrived home carrying the cake she would promise to make. The sense of uneasiness intensified. The apartment door was slightly ajar, a breeze blowing through, causing her to frown. She hadn't left it like that. Jungkook, she called out as she paused the door open, her voice laced with uncertainty. No response. Stepping inside, she noticed a soft glow coming from the bedroom. The door was cracked open. Vian's heart began to race, her stomach twisted into tight knots. Maybe he was still setting up her surprise. Maybe there was something waiting for her inside. She pushed the door open. What she saw froze in her inner place. Jungkook and Minji, her best friend, were tangled in the sheets, their body pressed against each other. Their laughter echoed in the quiet room, a stark contrast to the pounding in her chest. Vian, Jungkook faced, faltered. His eyes wide in panic, he scrambled out of bed, but it was too late. Vian stood rooted to the spot, her chest tightening as she looked at him. Her words crumbled around her. She couldn't breathe. What? She whispered, her voice breaking. Minji gasped, pulling the blanket up over her bare chest. But it only intensified the betrayal. Her best friend, the one she trusted with her heart, looked at her with guilt in her eyes, but that didn't matter. Jungkook stood there, his face pale, his expression a mix of shame and desperation. He opened his mouth to speak, but Vian didn't let him. How long? She demanded, her voice raw and broken. A few months, he said, his voice barely audible. Her heart shattered at the admission. The man she loved, the man she had trusted more than anything, had betrayed her in a worst way. You have been lying to me for a month, she choked out. I don't care, she spat, shaking her head, tears flooding her eyes. I don't care why you did it. You made your choice. With the last look at him, at the man who once held her heart, Vian turned and walked out of her apartment, leaving behind everything she. The months that followed were a blur of pain, numbness, and heartache. Vian moved out to the apartment and into a small, humble space in a quieter part of the city. She couldn't bear to stay in a place that held so many memories of a love she no longer recognized. The betrayal gnawed at her, every day leaving deep scars she couldn't seem to heal. She refused to acknowledge Jungkook's message, his phone calls, his attempt to show up at her door. Each message was a painful reminder of the man who had shattered her. It was just the fear, it was everything. The trust they had built, the year they'd spent together, all of it suddenly meaningless. And then the unexpected happened. Ryan discovered she was pregnant. The news hit her like a ton of bricks. She hadn't planned for this. She didn't know what to do. Could she really raise a child alone? Could she live with the constant reminder of Jungkook every time she looked at her baby? But as the day passed, her fear turned into something else, a quiet strength. She wasn't going to let Jungkook betrayal define her or her child. She made the decision to keep the baby. Through the early months of her pregnancy, Vian threw herself into her work. She buried herself in meeting, presentation, and strategies, determining to create something that was hers and hers only. Slowly, they rose through the ranks at her company, No longer she was just an employee, she was an executive, a force to be reckoned with. But the pain never fully left, even as she walked into her boardroom with confidence. Her heart ached with the memories of what could have been. There were days when the weight of all it threatened to crush her. But every time she thought about giving up, she thought of her son Jiho. Her son became the light in her life, the reason she kept moving forward. Months turned into years and Jungkook regret never softened. He tried desperately at first to reach out to Wine. Text, flower, phone calls, all of them ignored. He tried to apologize, but the word felt hollow in his mouth. He had betrayed her in a worst way, and no amount of regret could undo that. He saw the picture of her moving on in the paper, the rise of a CEO, the young woman who had become an inspiration to many. A single mother raising her child with grace and strength, and still Jungkook couldn't shake the image of her face when she had caught him. The way her eyes held look at him like he was nothing, it haunted him. But one day after hearing about her company's latest success, Jungkook decided to confront her. He couldn't keep running from his mistake. He needed a closure. It had been 5 years. Jungkook wasn't prepared for the rush of emotions he felt when he saw Ryan again, standing tall and confident in a sleek black dress, her son by her side. Ryan, his voice was barely a whisper as he approached her in the lobby of her office building. She froze for a moment, her eyes hardening as she looked up at him. "What are you doing here?" I need to talk to you, he said, his voice breaking with regret. "I have tried to reach you, but I understand why you have kept me out of your life. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I can't live with the guilt anymore. I need you to know how sorry I am for everything, for betraying you, for betraying Jiho.